Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Theory for Drummers. In this episode, I'm going to be taking you through Dotted Quavers and Dotted Quaver Rests. Dotted Quavers are also known as dotted eighth notes, and Dotted Quaver Rests are also known as dotted eighth note rests. Let's get straight into it. Starting with the dotted quaver, or the dotted eighth note, you can see that there are two ways that they can be drawn. The first way is the stems up way, and the second way is the stems down way. Now in both of these, you can see that they look like regular quavers with a dot to the right of the note head. As soon as you see a dot to the right of the note head for the quaver, it becomes a dotted quaver. Now, what does the dot do to the quaver to make it a dotted quaver, and how is it different from a quaver? That's probably what you're thinking of. Let me answer that for you. The duration of a dotted quaver is 3/4 of a beat. Now the duration of a quaver is half of a beat. So you can see the duration has increased because you put the dot out the front of the quaver. In fact, anytime you put a dot out the front of any note, the duration of that note increases. But you might be thinking, by how much? The rule is, put a dot out the front and you increase the duration by 50%. So what that means is you take a crotchet, let's say, put a dot out the front of it, it goes from being 1 beat to being 1.5 beats. You take a semiquaver, put a dot in front of it, it goes from being 1/4 of a beat to 3/8 of a beat. The increase in the note value is an increase by 50%, or it goes 1.5 times more than it used to be worth. Okay, so this is the most important concept in this video. If you understand this, you can understand not only what dotted quavers are, but what dotted semiquavers are and what dotted crotchets are as well. Now, the reason why I'm not dedicating a video to the dotted crotchet or the dotted semiquaver is because it just doesn't occur that often in sheet music for drummers. It may exist quite often in other instruments, but not that often for drummers. So I want you to understand the concept in case you see those notes occasionally, but the note that I want to focus on today is the dotted quaver, because that is the note that you're going to see most often when you're reading sheet music as a drummer. So let's move on to the next slide. Here we have a slide where I show you a combination of two different notes. The dotted quaver, which we just covered, and the semiquaver. The reason I want to spend some time on this combination is it is a very regular combination that shows up quite a bit in sheet music for drummers. The reason why is the dotted quaver, as we just mentioned, is worth 3/4 of a beat. And as you know, the semiquaver is worth 1/4 of a beat. These go well together because 3/4 plus 1/4 becomes 1 beat. So you'll see it quite a bit. And this is the way that it looks when it stems up. And this is the way that it looks when it stems down. Let's have a close look at the way this thing is written. You can see that the first note is a dotted quaver, 1 because it has a dot out the front of it, and 2 because it only has 1 horizontal line connecting it to its partners, or partner in this case. You can see that the second note is a semiquaver because it has 2 horizontal lines coming off the stem. The same thing applies for the stems down approach, where you've got the first note only having 1 horizontal bar and a dot out the front of it, making it the dotted quaver. And then the second note has the 2 lines coming off the stem, making it the semiquaver. So you've got 3/4 of a beat, and you've got 1/4 of a beat. You've got 3/4 of a beat and you've got 1/4 of a beat. Okay, so let's see this in action. If you have a look at the bottom bar here, you can see that I've drawn 4 of these dotted quavers and semiquaver combinations. Now, what is the counting for something like this? The counting for something like this, if you're starting on the 1 and you have placed a dotted quaver on the 1, you have placed a note that takes up 75% of that beat, or 3/4 of that beat, which means that there's only 25% or 1/4 of the beat left. And that is what the last note occupies, a semiquaver. That falls on the counting. So we've got the E and the AND that's in between here that we're not playing because the dotted quaver goes through those counts and the next note, which is the semiquaver, happens to fall on the The same logic can be applied and you end up getting 2 for the second beat, 3 for the third beat, and 4 for the fourth beat. Now this is a clean way of drawing this rhythm out, where you don't want to play the E's and the ANDs, but you want to play the numbers and the R's. There is obviously other ways that this can be drawn, and that is what I'm showing in the bar above. Here I'm showing but many methods in which this dotted quaver and semiquaver rhythm combination can be drawn without the use of a dotted quaver. And as you can see, the first option is to use a semiquaver followed by 2 semiquaver rests followed by another semiquaver, and you'll get the same effect. Another way is to use a semiquaver followed by a quaver rest on the E, add a quaver rest on the E, that goes for 50%, but 25% of the beat is already taken, which means that the last note is on the right? And that's a semiquaver as well. You can tell both of these E's and R's are semiquavers because they have 2 horizontal lines coming off the stem. And that is another way to write down just the number and the being played with the E and the ANDs both being rests. Both of these options, whether you're looking at this option or this option, requires the use of 1 or more rests. Here we've got 2 semiquaver rests to make it work, and here we've got 1 quaver rest to make it work. However, when you look at this bar down here, you don't need any rests to make that work. And that is why it's the best way to write the rhythm when you just want to play the number and the of the number. Moving on to dotted quaver rests, you can see that we've got a regular quaver rest with a dot out the front of it, making it a dotted quaver rest. Now, a regular quaver rest has a duration of half a beat, but a dotted quaver rest has a duration of 3/4 of a beat. Because like I said, put the dot out the front of the item and increase its value by 50%. And so we end up with the dotted quaver rest that can replace any dotted quaver to give you silence within 3/4 of a beat. So here we have an example on beat 1 of a use of a dotted quaver rest. You can see here the dotted quaver rest is on the 1, which means 75%, or the first 75% of the first beat is rested. The last 25%, or the last quarter of the beat, is being used up by a semiquaver on its own. So we have a 1 being a rest, E being a rest, and being a rest, and you're playing just the Now, there are other ways to draw this out where you've got 1 E and, or the number and the E and the and being a rest, and only the being played. Here's an alternative example. Here you've got 2 E and, all as rests. They're all semiquaver rests. And then you've got the semiquaver on its own for the You've got a third example where you've got 3 being a quaver rest. So the next note will be a and that is a semiquaver rest. And then you have the as a semiquaver on its own. And the final example, fourth example of how you can draw this out, you can have a semiquaver rest first and then the quaver rest on the E, which means that the next note falls on the A, and that is a semiquaver by itself. So these are 4 different ways, 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways in which you can write out the same rhythm. But for methods 2, 3, and 4, you required more than 1 rest. You required 3 rests there, 2 rests there, and 2 rests there to make it work. However, in the first method, you only required 1 rest, and that is the best use of a dotted quaver rest, to eliminate the need for multiple rests needing to be drawn to illustrate the same point. Okay, let's head over to the last slide for today. We're going to be covering semiquavers and dotted quaver combinations. So previous slide, or 2 slides ago, we talked about the dotted quaver and semiquaver combination. Now we're talking about the flip of that. We start with the semiquaver and then use the dotted quaver. What that achieves is a rhythm where you're counting the number, and then you're counting the E, and then the and the are both rests, because the dotted quaver starts on the E and goes through till the end of the beat, leaving the and the as silent notes. You can see that I've done the same here for 2E, same here for 3E, the same here for 4E. Now this is a very clean way to do it, because as you can see, there are no need for rests to be drawn. You can of course do it with rests drawn and avoid the dotted quaver. And the way to do that is, well, there's 2 ways to do that. This is one way, and this is the other way. So if we have a look at the first way, you've got these 2 semiquaver rests after you use 2 semiquavers for the 1E. And over here on the third beat, you've got a quaver rest after you use the 2 quavers for 3E. Both of them achieve the same result, playing on the number and the E and resting on the and are, but they both require rests. You require 2 rests here and 1 rest here, whereas there are no rests required for this option, which makes it the best way to write down that particular rhythm. Thanks for watching till the end, guys. I really appreciate your time and your attention. If you'd like to watch more Theory for Drummer videos, or you'd like to test out your theory knowledge while supporting the creation of this content, you can do so by heading over to my website, marnirasal.com/theory4drummers. Other than that, please do the usual: like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you click the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thank you guys. See you at the next one.